Between the ages of 5 and 7, children change quite a bit. In fact, the age of 7 has been recognized as, quote, the age of reason in many different cultures around the world for a long time. And I think this is an acknowledgement that by the age of 7, kids are quite different than they were even shortly before that when they were 5. So something happens in that time period. The reaction times get faster, they become better coordinated, both fine muscle and large muscle. They cognitively process things more quickly, and they think about themselves in a different way. They become much more self-conscious. They're more easily embarrassed. They're very sensitive to criticism and what other people think about them. And prior to this, that was not so much the case. So what exactly is it that happens to kids by the age of 5 that enables all of these other changes to take place? One of the most important things that develops sometime between the ages of 3 and 5 is something called the theory of mind. This is the child's ability to understand that other people have desires, motives, and emotions that influence their behavior, and that predicting the behavior of other people depends more on understanding what these people are thinking and feeling than in objective reality. So the kid comes to figure out that other people don't see the world exactly the same that they do and may not know the same things that they do. And this is a big step because nothing else is going to happen until the child has theory of mind. So it's a necessary precursor to the shift that you see between the ages of 5 and 7 in all of these other abilities. So kids can now think differently. They can understand other people's perspectives. And psychologists have developed a variety of ways of testing whether kids have a theory of mind or not. There are several interesting clips in this module that you can look at to see psychologists testing children for the presence of a theory of mind. But let me just describe some of them and you can look at them later. There are some links right here in the slide, but there are other ones on the web page. A false belief task. There are a variety of different false belief tasks, but let me just give you an easy example. Suppose there were 2 of you, college students, sitting in a room with me, and I hid something in a drawer in a desk. And then one of you leaves, and while that person's out of the room, I remove the object that I put in the drawer of the desk, and I hide it under a couch. Well, if I were to ask the student that is still sitting in the room, when the other student comes back, where is he going to think that object that I hid is? You're going to say, well, he's going to think it's in the desk drawer because that's where he saw you put it. So he understands that the person coming into the room doesn't know something that we know. Little kids, however, 3-year-olds and younger, and somewhere between 3 and 5, a lot of kids still don't have it. If you ask them, where is that person going to look when he comes back in the room for that object? They'll say under the couch because they know that it's under the couch and they don't know that the other person doesn't know the same things they do. And so that's an example of a false belief task. And if you pass that, if you get the right answer, that means you have a theory of mind. You understand the other person's perspective. There's kind of a cruel game called the mean monkey game, which you can look at on the video link, where a little kid is playing a game with a monkey puppet that keeps stealing stuff the kid wants. And all the kid has to learn to do is lie about something, and mean monkey won't win. 5-year-olds very quickly figure this out, and they get the best of mean monkey. 3-year-olds don't. By all means, watch this clip. You'll really enjoy it. Another popular test for the presence of a theory of mind is the 3-mountain problem, and I'll show you a slide about this in a moment. Now, there doesn't seem to be really any way to speed up a kid getting the theory of mind. It seems to be something that depends on biological maturation of the brain. They just aren't going to be able to get it until they're old enough. So if you're a parent, don't worry. There's really not a lot you can do to give your kid a theory of mind any earlier than you want. And you may not want them to get it too early, because this is when they start lying and being more manipulative than they were before that. There's some evidence that things like parents' income, education, and occupation might be related to developing this a little early, but that evidence is far from conclusive. There does seem to be a tendency for kids who engage in a lot of pretend play, a lot of fantasy, maybe developing a theory of mind a little earlier. We'll talk about autism a little bit as a possible link with theory of mind. But before we do that, here's a picture of the three-mountain problem. You'll also be able to see this in action by clicking on the link on this slide or going to the link on the web page. But basically, you've got two people sitting across the table from each other looking at a scene with three mountains, and the people are seeing different things from the different perspectives. A kid with the theory of mind, a child that's old enough, will understand that the person on the other side of the table isn't seeing the same things that he or she is. A child that's too young to have theory of mind, however, thinks the other person is seeing exactly the same things as they are. There's some disagreement as to whether any other species of animals have a theory of mind. Part of the problem is it depends on how you do the research. Research that are done out in the field in the animal's natural habitat indicate that many species of animals, like dolphins and elephants and chimpanzees, may in fact have a theory of mind. There's some work with dogs that indicate they may as well. But when you do laboratory studies looking for a theory of mind in these animals, they don't usually work out so well. Part of the problem may simply be that the design of the situation in the lab is just not a good match with what the animal would naturally be doing in real life. So I'm going to punt on this one and say we don't know for sure, but it's an ongoing area of interest. Some researchers are also interested in how the theory of mind relates to the problem of mind blindness that we sometimes see in certain disorders on the spectrum, like autism. Because autism affects a fair number of people. Roughly 4 or 5 kids out of 10,000 are autistic, and there are a variety of different symptoms, which you can see listed here. But there's a severe social deficit. The kid just isn't good at communicating. They don't know how to use eye contact the way most other people do. They're poor at recognizing faces. They don't usually engage in as much pretend play as other kids. And tricky linguistic things throw them off. They're very literal when they're listening to something. They don't get linguistic tricks. They often can have strong obsessions or fixations on something. Maybe you have a little boy who's fascinated with vacuum cleaners, and it's all he can think about or wants to play with. They're not good at coping with change. My wife was a kindergarten teacher for a very long time, and the autistic kids had not always been sorted out yet by the time kindergarten began. And when she would change the decorations in the room or move the furniture around over the weekend, sometimes a kid would just flip out on Monday when they come in because everything had changed, and they were just so overwhelmed by it they couldn't handle it. So they have an exceptionally good attention to detail. They notice when even the smallest little thing is different. This is very much a male thing. For every female that has this, there'll be 4 males. It does occasionally seem to be linked with an extreme talent in some other areas. For example, a lot of musical or mathematical savants, people that have these almost spooky gifts in those areas, are perhaps more likely to be autistic, although that certainly is not even usually the case. But this lack of understanding of other people's perspective is in some way or other connected with mind blindness in autism.